Hey guys, I got a new video for last Epoch. In this video we're going to go over my Spark Charge mana stacking Sorcerer, and basically this build is a Sorcerer. We're using Dragorous Claw, Fragment of the Enigma for our damage. So basically what that means is we are focusing on Spark Charges from Mana Strike. We also do get some chance from idols to apply Spark Charges. So Spark Charges are just like a sub-skill item that basically when you attack and you hit an enemy, you have a chance to apply Spark Charge that will explode after 0.7 seconds, and it does big AoE. Right, so that's one of our sources of damage. The other damage sources is going to be from Frostclaw. Frostclaw has a 30% chance to activate on melee hits, also when we are hit as well. And then with the Dragorous Claw unique, whenever we hit with our Frostclaw, we have a chance to proc Lightning Blasts, or at least whenever it crits, right? So we got our Lightning Blasts, and so we have about 3 main sources of damage. Now our Mana Strike is actually doing a decent amount of damage as well. I mean, not like super high, but see, about tooltip is almost about 10k. Alright, so that is sort of our damage. We do have some other sources and other on-hit effects we'll get into later, but that's the main concept for damage. Now for defense, you might be thinking, well, this guy only has 1k health, and so how are you able to actually do stuff like Corruption 500 plus? Well, this character is heavily focused on damage reduction. We have multiple sources of damage reduction that we'll go over in this video as well. But mainly the defense concept is, first of all, you're doing a lot of damage dealt to mana before health. So we're getting this from our Fractured Crown. We also have a little bit on our body armor. And so that is basically the way this works is you can read the tooltip here. So a percentage of the damage you take is dealt to your mana instead of your health. And each point of mana shields 5 health. So basically we take some damage, and right now I do have about 61%. Now I can actually get a lot higher if I do use one of my other armors. See, I have one here with a 30%, and then that'll kind of raise it up a bit. But anyways, the one I'm using right now is this one. So we have a total of 61%. So if we take a hit, 61% of that damage is going to be instead taken from our mana pool. So that is already quite a big layer of damage reduction, about 61%. And we also do have max endurance. You can see I'm at 60% endurance and about 1000 endurance threshold. So this means is our endurance is always active, and we are also reducing damage by another 60%. So right there, that's just two 60% damage reduction multipliers. And then we also do have a little bit on the passive tree over here. So you can see on Rune Master, we have another 8%. And then the other crazy part is you can see my Flame Ward has 3 charges. So Flame Ward, take a look at the skill. It has 30% less hit damage whenever we use it, and this does last about 4 seconds because we are increasing the duration over here. And basically, so that's 30% here. Then we have another less hit damage, 40%. This is multiplicative as well. Then we have another 30% less elemental damage taken. So another huge damage reduction coming in from Flame Ward. And since we have 3 charges and each charge cooldown is 9.6 seconds, we almost have full uptime on this. So you can see we can use Flame Ward almost like whenever we want, because we just have so many charges. By the time I finished using all 3, you see my other one charges come up. So that's pretty much the defenses of this character, reducing damage insane amounts. Alright, so let's jump into the Reign of Dragons. We're going to go do the boss over here so you can see what it's like on bossing and if we can actually tank the explosion. Okay, so 5 corruption boss. It's damage isn't really the highest because I guess we are sort of spec'd for defense mainly, but we do have a decent amount of damage. I don't think we can tank the breath thing over there, but you can see pretty easy, pretty relaxed bossing. All you have to do is right click pretty much, and when it comes to like these tanking, these explosions and this kind of stuff, it's not really a problem. Alright, so that was the boss. Now let's go look at a monolith. So this is Corruption 507. And we'll go do here, and then we'll do a Shade of Orbis so you guys can see the gameplay for, what you would probably normally be doing. So as we do this monolith, I'll talk a little bit about gameplay. The skills we're going to be using on our bar is going to be Mana Strike, Enchant Weapon. Now this one is kind of up to you, but then after that we have our Flame Ward and Teleport. So basically the way you play is, well, you just right click pretty much, right? And as you take damage, the damage is going to be taken to your mana pool. So you do have to watch out about, if you do drain your mana pool, you're going to lose your damage reduction and you're probably going to die, well, at least at this level of corruption. So what can you do to actually generate mana? Well, Mana Strike is generating pretty much enough mana to sustain all the damage we can take. Now, if you do start taking heavy damage, you are going to have to use your Flame Ward to reduce that damage even more. And Flame Ward does actually reduce the amount of damage that you take on your mana. So their endurance doesn't actually reduce the damage done to your mana pool, but things like armor and Flame Ward do. I think, or at least I think armor does, unless they've changed it. So in order to, if you need to recover your mana, then just use Flame Ward, and that's one way you can recover your mana. Alright, so you can see 500 corruption and total piece of cake. You can't really die here unless you do something stupid and drain all your mana. I'll show you a reason why we're using Black Hole. Wait, something over here. Renewal Ascendance. Alright. So Black Hole is kind of cool. First of all, it's a very fun spell, right? But what you can also do is, because spark charges are shotgunning basically, right? So you can group a whole bunch of mobs together and then just blow them all up, which is pretty cool and it is pretty fun. You can also use it to reposition bosses. So you can't really push bosses around that much anymore. They sort of fixed it, but you can use things like Black Hole to make them move away. You might have seen in the Reign of Dragons fight, I was moving the boss around to a spot I wanted him to be in the arena, which is kind of cool. Since also because spark charges are shotgunning, right? You can use it to drag a bunch of weaker enemies into a tougher enemy and kind of shotgun them to get some extra damage, which is pretty fun as well. Alright, so we got the ambush. And it is kind of laggy sometimes, these spark charges. This guy is actually a little bit tough because I think he is doing quite a lot of damage, but, nothing really to worry about. So you can see at this level of corruption, it's like, I don't know, pretty much insane how much we can reduce damage, and like nothing really is doing damage to us. We can stand in, like the spires that shoot at you, you can stand in those. The, Osprix light mages, when they do their fire thing, you can stand in that. It's not going to kill you. Pretty much everything, a lot of spells, or pretty much everything that would normally kill any other kind of character, this character can just stand in and tank it. And the good thing is it's not using any kind of bugged interaction, like, there's these like warlocks generating 50-60k ward with one button click, but that kind of stuff is going to be gone pretty much as soon as the next patch drops. But this kind of character it's not really using any kind of bugged interaction, at least that I know of. So I think it is pretty safe to say this build is going to be, safe to play, you could say. Alright, so let's go over the skills we're using. Now, I do have some other videos of how I level this character, starting off with 0 items all the way up to the point that I am at right now. So if you're interested in playing this build but you don't have all the items, I'll have some of those videos linked in the description. You can go check out and see what kind of build I was doing up till now. Okay, so first of all, let's check out Mana Strike. So Mana Strike, for the tree, we are going to get the spark charges, of course, and then we go make it ranged. And there is some other things we're doing. So up till now, it's been very hard to sustain the damage taken to mana before health, or at least very high amounts of it. And the reason is, well, Mana Strike, since we're making it ranged, Mana Strike has 80% reduced mana gained. but this doesn't apply to critical mana. So whenever it crits, we get mana, and this isn't reduced by this 80%, so it's always going to be 15%, right? So what we do is we take Celestial Precision, and this means we get a percentage of our mana as critical strike chance. And so if we're at 100% mana, we have 100% crit chance, or 95%. But we do have some increased, so basically it's 100% crit. But the problem with this is that when you do take some big hits and go down to, like, say 10% mana, well, then you just lost all of your crit, and then that means you're not going to be getting mana back, and you get stuck in these situations where you just cannot recover mana. So one big change I did make is I took critical rejuvenation. So this basically just gives you a flat 40% base crit, but you do not have any crit multi with Mana Strike, which is a little bit sad, because Mana Strike, it was doing about 20 to 30k tooltip DPS, but I guess, in order to actually sustain this level of damage reduction from the Mind Over Matter kind of setup, we did have to kind of take the loss on Mana Strike's damage in order to just focus more on gaining mana back. Okay, so after that, one other noteworthy interaction is Rune Sap. So Rune Sap, basically whenever you hit an enemy, you get damage. We get 12% damage per hit. Now this effect can stack, and basically on average, it goes all the way, it's about 300% increased spell damage. On average, you can get it up quite a bit higher as well. So just think 3 points for 300% increased spell damage. Well, that's really a pretty good value. Oh, and the reason we're not taking any of this area here is because, well, this is consuming mana, and the mana drain is too high. And, Mana Strike, we're using it just to generate mana and apply spark charges. So we can't really afford to take these points. Okay, so Frost Claw. Basically, this is your standard Frost Claw setup for these kind of on-hit builds, right? So you just get the chance on melee hit, we get the shotgun, we go into some damage over here, and then we get the base crit. Because Frostclaw is going to be proccing lightning blasts, or at least 40% chance on crit, so we do want it to crit. And then we just change it to lightning. So the reason we change it to lightning is, well, because we do have some passives in Sorcerer that are giving us extra bonuses for lightning damage, right? So we get 160% crit chance for lightning spells. I think that's it, yeah. So pretty much just this, actually. Well, and also we do have, stuff like lightning penetration, all that kind of stuff. So converting to lightning is going to give us quite a lot of damage. Okay, so that's Frostclaw. Let's go over Lightning Blast next. So we're not actually casting Lightning Blast on its own. We're just proccing it with the Dragorous Claw. And what we're doing, first of all, we go get the Lightning Attunement, so we get Lightning Aegis. Very important. This is a very nice additional layer of damage reduction. See, it's 25% less damage taken, which is kind of cool. And it is up about maybe 50-ish% of the time. So yeah, very nice, very good value. All right, and then we're going for the, convergence. So Lightning Blast can hit the same target. Now, one important thing to note is this rounds up. So what that means is you don't need to have 4 points in Chain Lightning. So we only need +3 chains, and this is going to get halved, and half of 3 is 1.5, so that gets rounded up. We get 2 additional hits, right? So there is no real point to actually go to 4 out of 4. It's just going to increase your mana cost and put more strain on your mana. So only 3 points here, and then we're going up to this Spark Nova over here. So there's a couple reasons. So why don't you might think, why don't we just go get the Spark Charge nodes over here? And yes, you can do this. It's completely up to you. If you want to go full in on the Spark Charges, that's up to you. Totally fine. It will work very good. For me though, right now, I'm just trying this out because first of all, Spark Nova, you might think the tooltip is actually kind of low, only like 2k. But this tooltip is kind of deceiving because these Spark Novas get affected by like the more damage on our Lightning Blast tree, so they end up doing actually more than this. I think the actual tooltip is actually very similar to the Lightning Blast tooltip, and that's actually how much damage they're doing, about 14k with these Spark Novas. And these Spark Novas are hitting pretty much every time that Lightning Blast hits an enemy. So I'm not really sure if the repeats also apply this, but if they did, then that's even crazier. But anyways, yeah, also this does give us access to blind. So going this way, if you go this way, you'll get blind. I don't really think there is another way to get blind in the build. So, okay, so after that, let's go over Flame Ward. Flame Ward, we have it set up very defensively. You can see 5 out of 5 in barrier and 3 out of 3 in prismatic buffer. And then we're going and getting the additional charge. And then with the remaining points, we reduce the mana cost and increase the duration. And then we're going converting it to lightning and getting a little bit of increased damage. So this is our Flame Ward tree. And for Enchant Weapon, just attack speed, duration, reduce mana cost. And then this point here is up to you. You can go for a cleanse if you want. You could go for chill chance if you want, get some chill in the build, which I might do at some point. I think that's about it, or I guess you can go into zap. So Enchant Weapon, very flex, right? These are pretty much the only points you need, and that is the skills. Okay, so let's go over some of the gear, because gearing for this character is actually very hard. So first of all, in order to start this build, you are going to need a Fractured Crown. Now I did make a video on how to make one of these, and I'll have it linked in the description. You can go check out. And after you get your Fractured Crown, aside from that, we are going to need to get our Endurance gear. So the way we get this is basically on our rings, our belt, our gloves. So this is our Endurance gear. Usually where you would have health and increased health, we now have Endurance Threshold and flat and Endurance. So very important, first of all, to get 60% Endurance. Then after that, you want to raise your Endurance Threshold to as high as you can. So Exalted Endurance Threshold with a suffix of Endurance. And then for the prefixes, I guess for damage stats, first one you want is Intelligence. After that, crit multi, critical strike chance, I think is the way to go. Okay, so for the rings, you want to get Intelligence and Strength, preferably. Strength is going to increase your armor, which is going to be very nice defensive wise. And then for your suffixes, you can see they're pretty much locked in. All right, so for the belt, it's a little bit different. We're going to get Endurance Threshold, Exalted, and then we want to have cooldown recovery speed. And for the implicits, they're kind of, I don't really think they're that impactful, so you can kind of get whatever you want. For the gloves, so you do want to get a plated gauntlets base, because this has endurance on the implicit. Mine isn't really rolled that well. And basically you want to get melee attack speed, mana probably, or intelligence, and then endurance threshold. And so here I have endurance on my gloves, but ideally if I did have better rolled endurance on my rings and on the implicit, I wouldn't actually need this endurance. So you can actually get 60% if you have very well rolled suffixes and implicits on these 3 items, but since I don't have it, I'm just getting endurance here. Okay, so for the boots, basically these boots are pretty I don't know, pretty unethical. I think it's got 4 seconds of frenzies. This T7 frenzy and then T6 CDR. So ideally though, the stat you want exalted is going to be movement speed. So movement speed, intelligence, cooldown recovery. This frenzy isn't required. After that, you have a free slot open. I think the increased armor or reduced damage taken from crits is good, but we'll get into that a little bit. So basically for your gearing, you don't have to worry about fire, lightning, cold, or physical resistance. We're going to get all of this from our gear and passives. You don't need to put any of these resistance stats on any of your items. The only resistance stats you are going to need is 1 T5 of each of these. Or not even T5, maybe even T4 will work in some cases. But so Poison, Necrotic, Void, and I think in the order of priority is probably going to be these 2, Necrotic and Void. And where do we get these? Well, you can get it on your body armor, your boots, or you can slam it onto a relic or your amulet. So we do have some slots to get this resistance. All right, so one place you can get it on the boots. And once you have all your resistance set up, the last suffix or defensive stat you want to prioritize is going to be armor. So increasing your armor is going to be very nice. I don't really have that much right now. Okay, so let's go over the weapon. So for the weapon, you want to get melee attack speed. And for the second implicit or non-implicit prefix, well, you can either go for this mana roll like I have here, or you can go for crit multi, I think, or crit chance. Strike chance is also good. And then you want armor shred on here. Now, the reason why I'm going for mana isn't really increasing the amount of damage I can do, and I think a good mana pool size is probably going to be somewhere like 700 plus. So the more mana you have, it's like your HP buffer, right? So if I take 3 big hits, it's going to drain my mana to 0. So the bigger your mana pool, the more hits in a row you can take, basically. So that is one thing. It's nice to have a nicely sized mana pool so you can, you know, take a few hits and then still have time to recover. Okay, so let's see. So let's go over the amulet. Amulet right now is Strong Mind, and there is another amulet that you can use, and it's like called the Orion's Eye. And if you get Orion's Eye, you don't have to worry about your void res, because basically that amulet converts all of the void damage you take into fire. So you don't have to worry about void res, which is actually kind of cool. But one nice thing about Strong Mind is, first of all, it does come with mana. It's very easy to get a 3 LP. And 200% of our mana is added as stun avoidance. So you can see my stun avoidance is 2,300. But I guess even with this, we do get stunned all the time. So it's kind of funny, but it's kind of nice. So for the amulet, here I like to get my mana. And then you can get crit multi, or you can get lightning pen. And then you probably want to get frailty. Frailty is something that you want to probably get on your amulet and not on the weapon. So on the weapon, it's only on melee hit. But on the amulet, it's on like every kind of hit. So. Okay, for Relic 2, Fragment of Enigma, make sure when you buy this, you prioritize the more damage Spark Charge roll. And then, so for Exalted or Legendary Affixes, probably Crit Multi, and then Mana, I'd say, is probably something you want to get. And then you can get Resistances here, or whatever other suffix you want. Now for the Relic, we're using Stormcarved Testament. This Relic, really cool because it does give pretty much a lot of different stats that we need. Defense and damage. You see it's got the lightning pen, it's got the lightning resistance, it's got fizz res, it's got spell lightning damage, it's got mana, and everything looks like it's just amazing. So that's the relic. So for the body armor, there's a couple of different ways you can go about crafting your armor. Right now I'm going for a +3 mana strike. You don't really need this +3. If you only had a +2, then you're only going to lose like 5% attack speed. So, and if you don't have enough points, this is where you would take points out first. Like you can lose 2 points here, and after that you're going to be losing rune sap points. But yeah, so you can actually just play with the +2 mana strike and be totally fine. But what you do want to have is the damage dealt to mana before health and mana strike on your prefixes, and you want a sealed flame ward charge. So that's going to give you 3 charges on flame ward. So pretty important that you have those 3. And then after you're done, if you're lucky with some suffixes, then I'd probably craft on void or necrotic resistance or poison res, or I guess flat armor would be good too. Alright, so let's go over the idols. For the medium-sized idols, you want to have mana and spark charge on hit. Mainly, you just want to get the spark charge on hit. And what we're doing here is we already have 100% chance over here. And basically, we want to get 100% chance from our idols and gear, right? And we're doing that from our idols and from our amulet, or not amulet, the Fragment of the Enigma has a little bit of a chance, and then the remaining chance that you need, you're going to get from Spellblade over here. Basically, add up all of your chance. Ideally, you want to get 20% plus on the big ones, and then maybe around 15-ish% chance plus on these medium-sized ones. And that's going to get you to 100%, so we'll have 200% chance to apply Spark Charge. And so whenever we hit with Mana Strike, we're going to be applying 2 Spark Charges per hit, which is going to be pretty nice. And as for the small ones here, I prefer to have mana and some resistance because, well, first of all, we got to cap our resistances. And also going over cap is actually pretty good because of the Dragorous Claw. It is giving us some overcap resistance stacking for Lightning Blast, depending on our resistance. So ideally you want to get a lot of cold res because that's going to give you crit multi on Lightning Blast. But yeah, or you can just go for mana and armor idols. That's good as well, I think. Or mana and health, whichever one you want. But all of mine are pretty much just mana and resistance. So that is sort of all the gear, guys. Let's go over some of the passives. And for mage, basically we're going to go for the resistance, the intelligence, and then we're going to get a little bit of mana and health here. We're going to get increased attack and cast speed, and then we're going for the crit multi or and crit chance. So that's 20 points here. We're going to ascend to a sorcerer, and then we'll swap over to Spellblade right away. We're going for this elemental affinity. These are all just filler points. So honestly, you can use these wherever you want. It doesn't really matter Not really like anything really impactful, although this elemental affinity, elemental resistance is kind of important to cap your elemental resistance, so I guess this one would be required. After that, arcane shielding, and then this is just filler here as well, so I'm taking some vitality because vitality does give a little bit of poison and necrotic resistance, so I mean not a lot, you know, it's only like 5%, but still. Anyways, after that we're going to go for the attack speed, and like I said, Stormblade until you have 100% chance to apply Spark Charge on hit. And then the rest of your points, we're going to go into Shattered Aegis. This is actually something you take at the very end, like your last 3 points, like level 97, 98, 99. Okay, so after that Sorcerer, we're going to get Mana Shell. We're going to get Calculated Destruction just for the 5-point bonus. We're going to get some more mana and unlock the bonus here, so we get some more mana regen. And 1 point into this node here, because I mean honestly we already have a lot of shock chance and the increased damage you get per point is very low. And then over here, this one is sort of important. This is all of the leech we're going to get in the build, and we do get 15% lightning pen, which is pretty big. Arcane Avalanche, this is amazing for if you take, like say, a big hit, it's going to freeze everything around you and it's going to give you some time to recover. Okay, after that, all of this crit stuff over here, 1 point into Arcane Insight, because Insight is a buff that gives, you know, 20% increased elemental damage, and even with 5%, since we are generating so many hits, this is enough to have 100% uptime on the buff. Then Distant Spark, this is going to be pretty insane damage-wise because all of your crits can proc this, and since we are generating so many hits, we're going to be getting tons of these procs, so this ends up being quite a lot of our damage. You do need to be a little bit away from the target, so that's why you can see I'm using Black Hole, and if something gets too close, then I can just pull them away with the Black Hole and get the Distant Spark to proc. Okay, after that, cooldown recovery and Archmage for the spell damage. And lastly, Rune Master we're going to get over here for the damage reduction. Okay, so that is sort of the passive. Let's go over what blessings we're using. So let's start off from the bottom. For Black Sun, we want Crit Multi. Ending the Storm, we want Lightning Resistance Shred. For Reign of Dragons, you're going to get all resistances. Age of Winter, Endurance Threshold. And Spirits of Fire, basically, ideally, we're going to have the armor. But right now, I don't have another source of frailty in my build. So until I can get swap around some of these gear items and get frailty, ideally, I get frailty on my amulet. And then I get my necrotic resistance on my chest armor or something like that. We'll have to see. But until we do get that, just get frailty, right? And then once you get frailty on your armor or your gear somewhere, then you can swap this over to the flat armor. All right, so that is the blessings, guys. That's pretty much the whole build. Pretty fun build. You know, this thing is probably going to go all the way up to 1,000 corruption. I'll be pushing. We'll see how far we can go. I'll also do arena. Probably easy to get rank 1 on this build, I think. I mean, should be no problem at all. This build is actually really good in arena. But anyways, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.